For this next code sample, we'll look at some string validation. This really does mirror what we saw in the text and kind of the example that we talked about in the textbook. So this again is in the session 12 module here under chapter 9 code samples. And I do already have it open in a background tab here. What this program aims to do is validate an input that's taken from a user. So here, starting on line 8 and continuing through 10, we are getting an input from the user, and we are telling them that they will enter a customer number in the form LLL, that is for letter, 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 and NNN, that is number, 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 number. So there's a couple of things that we need to know before we can process this. First and foremost is that we have a method that we've created called isValid. And what we are passing along to isValid is the string input that we get from our JOption pane input dialog box. So here, this is line 37. We've got our isValid, and you see it returns a Boolean. So this is just true or false. Now, these are the things we need to check to make sure that the customer has entered in the proper customer letter. First and foremost, you'll notice we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 characters. So that's something we have to test for. Next, we have to make sure that the first 3 characters are letters. Then we have to check if the next 4 characters are numbers. So those are the 3 things that you as a developer would have to do to ensure that, yes, in fact, this is a customer number in the form that we're expecting. So back here on line 37, we start to test those. We have a Boolean for good so far. That's what we're going to return to our calling line back here on line 13. That's the true or false that we're going to return back there. We also have an int here just to help us manage the the range testing that we're going to do with this particular method. So first and foremost, we need to check if customer number, so that's the string I passed down here, if customer number dot length, and we've seen dot length as a string method before, does not equal 7, good so far equals true. So what that means is any value outside of 7 is bad. So we're done already. So if that's true, we can keep going. Good so far, and I less than 3. So we've got a little while loop here, and this while loop is going to test the first 3 characters for letters. So what we do is not character dot is letter, and then so this is character dot is letter. So you'll remember that strings are comprised of characters in an array. So we would go through at I, so there's our simple loop, there's I++. We go through from 0, 1, and 2. That's our first 3 characters in our string array. And as long as that returns is letter, we're good, we're good, we're good. So the next thing, the very last thing we have to test here is if the last characters are digits, right? So numbers. So we would go through here and check to make sure that the character at, our array, so that is the same I for iteration we start with here, is continued on and used here. So the first 3 characters, 0, 1, and 2, are tested here. And here, 3, 4, 5, and 6 are tested. So that's a really nice reuse of this one integer value instead of saying, resetting it and using a different range here. As long as we know that our parts number should have 7 characters, we can build 2 loops that use this very same integer and actually get the same thing to work. So that's pretty great. So we're doing the same thing here. We are testing the characters at 3, 4, 5, and 6. And as long as those are all digits, that's that dot is digit, we're good to go. So as long as nothing here on line 58, here on 50, or here on 44, so long as nothing set our flag to false, we can return a Boolean of true, and boom, it will say that is a valid customer number. Otherwise, and it will return an invalid customer number. So I'm going to go ahead and run this, which I should have done before because that's going to take some time, but I'm going to use this time to remind you that even though here in our output we are suggesting we need capital, capital, capital letter, that is not going to display as capital letters here inside of my input dialog box. So just to demonstrate, AAA, that's too many letters. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I have 3 A's, 1, 2, 3, 4. That is a valid customer number. So those were lowercase a's. Now I just want to run this one more time. And when you are testing these using Replit at home, this is an issue you're going to have is, again, the letters are going to display. So this time I have the caps lock on. You're going to have to trust me. And I say, this time I have the caps lock on. There we go. And I type my 3 letters, AAA. It displays them as lowercase, but they should be uppercase. So in the probability that you need to use an is uppercase, it's going to look weird here. There's just nothing we can do about it inside of Replit. So I'm going to test that again, and this time with uppercase A's, it is still valid because we're just checking here for is letter as opposed to is uppercase. So that's the way, or some ways rather, we would validate string inputs. So think about this every time you would build an interaction with a client. The better we are at ensuring that your clients cannot enter in bad data, the more we can rely on that data, because bad data in means bad data out. So the easiest place to ensure that you have good data is at its first touch point. And oftentimes that's going to be here with the user.